Hey, welcome everyone. This is the first edition of Introduction to GovCon. My name is Mike Fieldson. My background is I was an intelligence specialist in the Navy in the late 90s, early 2000s. Finished an engineering degree, mechanical engineering, at the University of South Florida. I guess that was probably back in 2003. And I went to work for a company called Battelle as a design engineer. After that, I spent a little bit of time in SOCOM, Special Operations Command, Science and Technology Department, and then later on, I became a government program manager. When I moved over to SOCOM, I really wanted to build a business. It was kind of a mini Battelle down here in the Tampa area, but unfortunately, some of the rules within the Federal Acquisition Regulation or the FAR prohibited that, and so I really focused my time on working as a government employee, as a GS, government service servant, for about 10 years. And so I started off as a GS 13, finished as a GS 14. And so what I was hoping to do over this series is share some of my experiences, both on the government side as well as now on the industry side. So kind of continuing on, I had some really great opportunities at SOCOM. The first project I worked on was the Silent Night Radar, which was a train following, train avoidance radar system. So basically what it's doing is it allows the helicopter or the airplane to follow the shape of the Earth. So you want to stay below enemy radar. So that was a really exciting project. I knew nothing about radars, but I learned how to be a manager and really under that cost, schedule, and performance were the key things to manage as a program manager. My next position was a couple of UAS or unmanned aircraft system positions, kind of at the same time. Both were Group 3 or around 400 pounds. One was a fixed wing aircraft. The other one was a rotary wing aircraft, so helicopter. Both were really good projects. And that's probably where I first started talking to industry and really trying to understand a little bit more about what is industry thought about when they were trying to develop requirements and try to meet the government's needs. And so had a lot of great conversations with some of those teammates. My next position, I was the deputy program manager for sensitive activities. So we did some really interesting work for special operations. Much of that was classified, so I really won't be able to go into that too much. But I did have the opportunity to go to DAU, or Defense Acquisition University class. It's a program management capstone course. And in that course, it was a lot of case studies, about 100 different case studies over a 10-week period. We also had some industry partners that were with us. General Atomics had some folks there. Also Raytheon, Boeing, and a couple others. That was probably 2011 timeframe, so it was quite a while ago. My next position, I was asked one day to take over a really hard project, was to create Special Operations Command's Iron Man suit, and that was something. If you Google my name, Mike Fieldson, and Talos Tactical Assault Light Operator suit, you'll see a lot of the great things we worked on there. But legitimately, we're trying to create an Iron Man suit for SOCOM. And so there's obviously some technical challenges there. We had a lofty goal. There was many successes, but there was also some significant setbacks due to the maturity of the technology at the time and really even today. That was another opportunity for me to spend a lot of time with industry and understand what was available commercially, what was on the technology development roadmaps, and how we as government officials could work with industry. We created some really interesting things back then in terms of acquisition strategies. We created this blanket CRADA, which is still used by Special Operations Command today. We also use vendor loan agreements, and those were opportunities for us to take technologies which were developed in industry and experiment with those a little bit. And so a lot of the things that we worked on in the early days of the Talos project later on became what is known now as SOFWORX, which is probably one of the front doors to Special Operations Command. So again, got to work on that for a while. The next project I worked on was AC-130J. So that's a gunship. That's the newest AC-130 that's on the planet. So we ended up building 30 of those. The intent was to build 37. There was some manpower harvesting, I would say, that went into the reduction in total gunships. But that was an exciting program. I started off, and that was a test program. We had a couple of different aircraft that we built. Our job there was really to accelerate the production of those, because we needed to go into a full test program, operational testing. So we got the opportunity to stand up a production facility in northern Florida in the Panhandle region, and really it was probably the best thing I think I learned from there was that sometimes when you go fast, things actually are cheaper and they're not more expensive. And so I'll probably use some of those stories in a later segment here. Anyway, so my final job at SOCOM was I was in charge of all unmanned systems, Group 1 through 5. So Group 1 are the small hand-launched systems. Group 5 are the larger systems that you hear about for drone strikes. Kind of in the past, now you're hearing a lot about small UAS being involved in drone strikes. The other thing that I worked on was manned ISR. So that's airplanes that have intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance requirements, but they're manned as opposed to unmanned. So that was a great job. I had $1.2 billion that I was responsible for at the end of that. So the next thing that happened for me really was that I had some life events where I decided to leave the command and went to work for another local company where I was the director for business development, focused on special operations. We had a few products that we were trying to market, and technology we're trying to market back to the command. So did that for about 6 months, and that really was probably the turning point where I really got to understand industry and what it takes to be successful for business development. And so a lot of the things that we do here at my company, Ombra, we've basically leveraged all those experiences. And so now what do we do? So Ombra is a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. We do a lot of work both with special operations and broader services, but we also help small businesses navigate, government contracting, understand the FAR, the FMR, Federal Acquisition Regulation, and then also DoD 5000. And so, when we first started Ombra, and Ombra just stands for umbrella, we were trying to figure out how do we do some of the engineering that I wanted to do back in 2007, where it was a mini Battelle. And for those who aren't familiar with Battelle, it's a large nonprofit based out of Columbus, Ohio. So very diverse technologies they work on, classified things, unclassified things. And so, when you first start a company, you really you have to figure it out by yourself mostly. And so there's a lot of things that I brought to the table based on my experience as a government servant, also as a brief stint with the other company where I was doing some business development, but then also, all the hard things that you have to figure out on this side of the fence as a small business, is the certifications with DCAA to figure out, how do you have an accounting system which will allow you to do cost type contracts as opposed to fixed price. You need a facility clearance at some point if you want to do really interesting work. So how do you do that? How do you manage cash flow? What are the legal considerations? How do you hire people? How do you find people? And so those are all the lessons learned that I've had over the last 6.5 years. So the intent here in this series is really to share some of these thoughts that I have and experiences, things that we help other companies with today. And so I hope you'll find that this segments will be interesting and relevant to both government workers and industry partners, maybe on the small business side, that are struggling with some of these things. So with that, thank you for your attention, and I look forward to future segments.